Guys, this is Jared Henderson. Welcome to Inside the Sale. We're sitting here. We got a special guest with us on today. We have Michelle Tomey on with us. It's sometimes it's like better when we have people in the because we can cue it right, but doing them on Zoom is a little different. So that's funny.
I
But
heard it.
cool. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
Ready
Uh,
for conference?
yeah, I was just about to say. I know you guys are pumped up for conference. I know we were just talking about that. So we wanted to get Michelle on today because you've been, and I know you have some other podcasts and stuff out there, you know, for, training and True Talk and stuff like that. But I don't think anybody's actually heard your in-home. So
Okay.
I couldn't really think of anybody else better to get on than, someone that sells, 30 to 40K a month consistently. But before we kind of go into that, tell them kind of how long you've been with the company, how you got started, what'd you do in the past, just so kind of people kind of get an idea. So when you start going through this, they don't think you're some like insurance magician or anything like that.
Oh, no. I'm definitely not that, but I appreciate you guys having me on today. And so I started with Family First Life. Let's see, March of 2020 is really when I went full time. Before that, I leased commercial office space, so executive office space, and I worked for a company and did that for about 7 or 8 years. And it just got to a point where I was making that company more money year after year after year, increasing that, but my income was going down because of the pay structure. And I was a mother of two, single mother of two. So it got to a point where it just didn't make sense for me anymore. And I was going to have to do something else.
Mm.
I just wasn't sure exactly what that was or what that looked like for me. Um, and I had been talking with Ryan and Brandon, and they'd been trying to get me to do this for a while. And I just honestly, I thought, I've never sold life insurance. I'm not really even a salesperson, I don't feel like. So I just, they kept talking to me, and I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So I took my test last January, and really I went to convention. And after I went to convention with Brandon, I actually never went back to my job. So I just pulled the band-aid off and jumped right in head first.
I love it. I love it. It's crazy because when we had you up here in Orlando, man, that was actually a while ago. That was like 6 or 7 months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
That's know where the time's gone.
yeah, right. Time freaking flies. And I didn't know that you were, I completely forgot. I was like, dang, she has 2 kids. And then when you're like, hey, I'm a single mom, and I feel like we resonated so well because I grew up single mom,
Yeah.
and just seeing your work ethic and, it's inspiring, just not only being single mom and all that and having a why, but just understanding that you don't have to be in insurance for 10 or 15 years to come here and have success day one. It's just you got to be willing to work hard, and you have that, 100%. So, well, thank you. I'm excited for this. Thank you for getting on, and I know it's going to help a lot of people. So, we'll kind of just hop right in. So this is Inside the Sale, right? We love to break down the in-home sales process and kind of, show what that looks like to either help new agents or, take your sales from 10 to 15,000 to 30,000, whatever you're looking to get to. So you work both mortgage protection, final expense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I really, I started off my first, 6, 7 months, only final expense. For some reason, mortgage protection scared me to death.
It does. Yeah,
I
no.
didn't even I didn't even try it. So yeah. But now it's really a mixture of both.
Okay. Okay. I think a majority of people that are going to watch this are probably going to be just like you and work final expense.
Okay.
Mortgage protection is the same thing. There's a couple more moving parts, but instead of putting a final expense policy in place, you're putting a mortgage protection product like Americo's CBO or Mutual of Omaha Term Life Express. It's just a different product, and you're just covering the mortgage instead of burial expenses. So,
Yeah.
so let's break down the final expense. So, um, you know, basically, let's start from when you get to the home. Let's talk about the mindset because this is inside the sale. I think the mindset starts, in your car, driving to the appointment, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, talk
And
about that a little bit.
so that's kind of where when I'm talking to new agents, that's what I try to let them know. The appointment doesn't start when you get there and you're knocking on the door. The appointment for me starts, prior to. So when I'm in the car, I'm either listening to podcasts, trainings, motivational books,
Mm-hmm.
speakers, always, because it really helps to get my mindset right. So I'll even listen to podcasts or trainings, people that I've listened to over and over and over. It just gets my mind right. And, it helps kind of push everything that might be going on in your life, put that out of your mind. And, you're there to help a family. And I think that's really important, to get your issues out of the way. So that's number one for me always, is getting my mind right, making sure that, even I might even pick up something new that I learned in a training and implement it into the home, when I get in there. So that's number one for me. I really try to keep it really simple. Everybody is always scared of in-home. That's that's what every new agent, that's what they want to know. I need to know about in-home. And it's really not, it's really, really, really simple. And so what I did was I went through with Brandon the day before or the night before I had my first appointment, and we just broke it down. And I wrote down exactly line by line what I was supposed to do. And I just followed those steps. And then so I was more like, I saw myself as just an order taker.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know there's a lot of new people, that are going to be watching, and don't overcomplicate it. Make it simple. There's lots of people out there that have done this. Like I say, I had no prior insurance sales. I knew nothing about insurance. So I just followed the steps in the process. Um, and, that's kind of where I got to where I'm at now.
No, I love it. I think the main thing, if you can take anything away from this is, and you hear all these top guys talk about it. You just said it. This business is mainly on the phone.
Yeah.
Setting the appointments. It's the activity you're putting in. The product knowledge is not going to get you to 40, 50K a month. Does it help? Yeah, I'm sure it'll help you close some deals here and there, give some credibility. But at the end of the day, they're buying you. They're not buying Americo. They're not buying they're buying you.
Right.
So I think that's huge is getting your mindset right and understanding that it does start with you. And that these people at the end of the day is a family, and it's good to look at it as a lead, but you're just going in there like these people need my help, you
Yeah.
know? And it's funny because we always talk about it. It's like when you show up to the appointment and you go to knock on the door, I'm expecting to leave with a check and an app. That's just what it is, especially even when you're new. It's okay. You're going to have your upline, your manager. There's plenty of tools and resources out there. You just have to find them. You have to plug in.
Yeah.
It starts with you picking up the phone, booking some appointments, and getting out there. Nothing's going to happen until you do that. So basically, get your mind right. You still listen to podcasts. You're selling 30, 40K a month, and you're still trying to get better.
Always,
I love it.
always.
I love it.
And I'll tell you, when I've had, not so good weeks, I have to always look back and think, what did I do differently?
Yep.
And I'll tell you that, most of the time it's that I didn't listen to a training or something positive to motivate me.
Mm.
It's almost always that for me. So whenever I can get back to that. So now I just never let it go. It's just part of my routine. And I know a lot of those top producers talk about routine and discipline.
Hmm.
And that's got to be one of those things that's built into that, is that the trainings before appointments, even if it's only little bits and pieces, you can't watch a full training. Or, there's some motivational um, YouTube things out there that I watch, and they're short. They're like 6, 7 minutes, and it just kind of gets me where I need to be at.
Sure. No, absolutely. It's huge. I like to compare it as your mind is like a garden. And
Yeah,
if you don't water it, if you don't tend to it, weeds will start to grow and they'll overtake everything else. You got to stay positive.
that's
I
right.
love that. So basically, when you get to the home, you knock on the door. What does that look like?
Well, and for me, what I do is when I pull up, I'm looking around. So I'm looking around, what's around me. Well, even before that, as a new agent, I'm calling my manager, my upline, saying, "Okay, I'm going to see this person. This is what I know about them. Just giving them a heads up that I'm going to be calling them here shortly."
Mm,
So it kind of gives them a little advance notice. But I'm looking around for things like flags, something military, a college football team, something that I can pick out and relate to, just from looking at, stickers on cars or flags or little things they have in the yard. Um, so it really starts there. And when I get to the door, so being a female, I know a lot of people, ask, well, what are you wearing? What do you have with you? Um, I keep it really simple. I might be wearing jeans and a cute top, but I never try to dress up. Always just trying to be on their level. And I think that that's really important because, even some before, even if I'd wear heels or wedges and a dress, if that's a little bit more. Most of these people are, you know, middle America. They want you to be on their level. So jeans, a nice shirt, and some flat shoes. Um, I have my bag that has my iPad in it and, some odds and ends. I have my clipboard. I always have a clipboard that has the lead attached to it. And then my lanyard that has my state license. And I wish I had a picture of it with me, but so it looks official. I look official. So I'm there. And when I pull up and I knock on the door, I've opened that screen door and I'm kind of, right there in the door. And I knock on the door hard. I mean, I'm the police. I'm not doing this little timid, nothing like that. I want them to know that I'm there and I'm there for business.
mm,
um, when they open the door, I'm starting to walk in. I had the appointment with them, so I'm coming in. We're not doing this, you know just standing out on the front porch. We're going to go in and we're going to do business. And I right then is when I try to kind of start a little bit of building rapport, because I don't do a whole lot of it. um, so, I'm looking around. A lot of times they'll say things like, um, sorry, the house is such a mess, or this or that. And I always just kind of laugh and say, I've got 4 kids and 2 dogs, so this is nothing. So it kind of breaks that barrier a little bit with the client. Like, I'm just like you guys. My house is disaster as well. And so everybody kind of laughs, and I've kind of made fun of myself. So I'm not above them or anything like that.
mm.
Always asking right away for a table. So, I want to sit at a table. It's number one, it's easiest. Number two, that's where people do business. They don't do business on a couch, laid back in the recliner. Um, and as we're walking to the table, I'll build a little bit of rapport with them. If I see pictures of their kids, I'm always asking things like, "Oh, this is great. How long have you lived here? Oh, are you from the area?" So everything that I am asking them has to do with it. It's got a meaning behind it. So I'm asking them things and they're thinking that I'm just being friendly, but it's things that I need to know that are going to be asked on the application. So I've already started the process, right when I walk in the door. Um, oh, how long have you guys been married? How many children do you have? So getting some of that information out without them even realizing it.
I think that's huge. And not to cut you off, but because again, people are going to watch this and they're going to go, man, I want to be able to do that. I want to, but let's just back up a second here. Those things, and you've ran probably close to 1,000 appointments probably by now, maybe even more. And it doesn't always go as planned, right?
No.
But I guarantee you it's going to go more as planned more than not, having that mindset, because you've gone in and you've made the mistakes. You've been told no. It's not like you go in and you close every appointment, but I think new agents want to get there, right? Without having to put the work in. They're like, well, I want to be able to, it's like, you got to go do the work. You have to go meet with these people time and time and time and time again. And then you're going to start picking up on those things. Hey, like you said earlier, I reflect back, I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to ask this next time. I'm not going to ask that. And that also comes in plugging into the training, asking your manager, like you're not just going to figure it out, yourself,
Right.
So I think that's huge. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're
Keep
good.
going.
You're good. Yeah, it's I'll tell you, I don't. At the beginning, I did way too much rapport building,
Mm.
and way too much chit chat. And I think that you've got to let them know, just like on the phones, you have to set the standard. They've got to know you're in control. And so I find myself, when I start to feel like it might be getting a little bit out of control, like you're getting too much into the friend zone, going right back into, um, you know, turning it around, asking some of those questions that you need to know the answer to anyway.
Mm.
One of the most important things that I feel, is once you sit down, you're sitting at the table with them, is setting the agenda. It makes you look like you're in control. You've told them what's going to happen, what they can expect. So they're not just left to wonder, what are we doing? So I let them know, this is the information, this is the form that you filled out. So I am the field underwriter for about 15 or 20 different carriers. This is where I showed them the credibility sheet and say, so some of the carriers you probably heard of: Mutual of Omaha, Americo, AIG, John Hancock. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, plug them into my system, and it's going to let us know, out of all those carriers, which one would have the best option for you and your family. Um, then from there, unfortunately, they don't let me make the decision, or else I'd approve everybody. Um, I mean, we laugh. It kind of, breaks the tension a little bit.
Sure.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to fill out an application and submit it to the carrier to see if they'll approve the coverage for you. Is that fair? And they always say yes. I've never had anybody say no, that doesn't sound fair. And so then we just kind of go into it. It's really important, especially when you're new, to use the your fact finding sheet, to have that, so you step by step. Like I said, you're just an order taker. You're asking them the questions that you need to know. um, Name, birthday, address, but more important is finding their why.
Mm.
So you've got to find their why, or else you're never going to close a sale. You're never going to be able to help that family if you can't find their why. So I call it the three boats. So I start off, after I've told them what we're going to do today. I start off by saying, now, my clients all fall into one of three categories or three boats. Either they don't have any life insurance and they need some, they have some and they need more, or they want to leave a legacy. And so I think the three boats, we call them, are very important. And the wording that you use, most of my clients, have filled this out for one of three reasons. They need life insurance or they need more. So they filled it out for one of those three reasons. And most of the time they're going to stop you and say, oh, yep, that's me, number one. And okay, great. So then I know where we're at. If they're they already have some and they need more, great. Can you go get that policy for me? That's real important too, because a lot of time, most of the time, they don't have what they think they have.
Mm.
Uh, did you have a question for me?
No, I think it's extremely important with what you're talking about. Obviously, not only just setting the stage, setting the structure, that's extremely important. But not building too much rapport. You were touching on that, and that was something I was bad at. And the reason I was bad at it was I wouldn't say I struggled too bad with my age, because I knew I had a license, I knew I was qualified to be there, but it was a little uncomfortable for me because I was 19 years old going into people that are 68, and I'm like, all right, John, well, let me tell you how you're going to get some life insurance today. It was a little uncomfortable. And me dealing with agents now in our agency that are my age or younger, I kind of try to help coach them through that. And like I tell people all the time, it got to a point where I just had to poke fun at myself. I would literally walk in and not be to where it would be too awkward, but I would still like let them know I'm a human without building too much rapport. I would always crack the joke. I'm like, hey, we got to make this quick. My mom just dropped me off and she's going to go get me a Happy Meal. So, and they would always laugh. Like it was super cheesy, but they just found it like it was freaking hysterical, and then we'd laugh and they'd be like, what are you, 15? I'm like 14, but who's counting, and just like little stupid stuff like that. But we would get to the table and it's like down to business,
Yeah.
and what you're going over right now is huge because a lot of people, I think, again, as a new agent, they think, oh, it's about the price, it's about the product and this and that. What insurance company are we going? No, 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 no. If you don't do this correctly, there is no sale. You can forget it. You're not going to help them with insurance. So what you're digging in right now is please keep going. This is gold.
Yeah. And I think a lot of new agents too, you know, you start building all this rapport and you're talking this small talk
Mm-hmm.
because you're a little nervous.
Correct.
You're nervous about what that's gonna, like you don't know what you should know about insurance. So
Right.
you revert to what you do know, and that's, just making conversation with somebody. So don't get wrapped up in that. There is a time I feel like that is meant for rapport building. And, that's during the application process a little bit down the line. Um, but going back to finding their why. So I really try to dig, so if God forbid something happened to you yesterday, Paul, who
Mm-hmm.
would be the one left to pick up all the pieces?
Mm.
And, you do have to dig. It just depends on their personality. Sometimes they'll just tell you everything outright, but, a lot of time you have to dig and say, okay, that's going to be your daughter, Susie. Okay, well, where does Susie live? Oh, she lives in California. So that means so she's going to have to fly in for your funeral. She's going to have to take off work. She's going to have to, get the kids out here, take time to clean up your house, So you've got to really dig and make them feel like they're in that moment,
Mm.
what that would look like for whoever's left behind. Because usually it's not always as easy as just going to the funeral home, paying for the funeral, and that's it. There's a
Right.
whole lot more that people don't think about, that goes into that. And so digging and finding that is very important. And then using that person's name, whoever's going to be the one left behind, using that throughout the rest of the appointment, is huge. So, once I find that out, then we can start in with the information, all the basics, the health questions, the financial questions, um, the medical questions, getting their prescription, what have you been prescribed in the past 6 years? And once I get that, all that pertinent information, that's when I'm calling my upline or my manager and saying, hey, Brandon, I'm here with Susie. I'm in a home. I'm here with Susie, and she's 62 years old. She is looking to protect her daughter that lives in California. She's a non-smoker. She's had a heart attack 3 years ago. These are the prescriptions she's on. I was thinking, going with this carrier, I just want to run that by you.
Mm.
And so, you're taking all the pressure off yourself. I let the clients know after I get that information, would you mind if I called my product manager or product specialist? I just want to make sure that I'm putting you and Susie in the best situation possible. And like before, they don't ever say no to that.
Mm.
If anything, it doesn't make you look dumb, like you don't know. It's like, okay, this is what I think, but I'm going to call just to make sure. And they appreciate that a lot more than you even realize. And so, like I say, you're just getting the basic information. I mean, you haven't, had to figure out the products, because that's what your manager's there for,
Right.
And that will come with time,
Sure.
it does. But you gotta get to those appointments, and sit in front of those people before you get comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't know, Eagle Premier came with accidental and all this stuff on your first appointment. You're like, I have no idea. I just know you need some life insurance. You sent this card into our office, it's huge because, again, like we were talking about it in our meeting this morning, and I was talking to an agent, and he's like, well, he was dealing with draft dates and this, and he's like, well, I struggle with that. I'm like, it's not that you're struggling with the price. It's not that
Right.
you're struggling with that. You're struggling with building the why. You didn't build enough urgency, and they don't really understand why they need it. And you talking about using the beneficiary's name, that's huge, because one thing I like to do in my appointments is going back to you talking about keeping things simple. What we
Mhm.
mean by that is, because I used to think like, what do people mean by that? Keep it simple. I'm very analytical, so simple to me might be completely different. It's simple to somebody else. But what I mean is, you going and saying, hey, John, when you die, Mary is going to get a check for 10 grand. Saying stuff like that. She's going to get, $15,000. She's going to cover the funeral, and then whatever's left, she can do what she needs to do with. Or showing the options and being like, hey, John, which one of these options do you think is going to make the most sense for Mary?
Right.
Mary being the daughter, the beneficiary, or whatever. But it's saying things like that, like, hey, she's going to get a check when you die, because we could sit here and use the terms your beneficiary and she's going to get the death benefit. But again, like you just said, these are middle-class people. Like, keep it simple. Hey, she's going to get a check for 10, 15 grand when you pass away. She's going to get the money when you die. And it just paints they're like, oh, okay, so she's getting money. Just, that's what we mean, keeping it simple. Because again, if you don't have that why, you're a pencil pusher. You're not building value. You're not doing anything. And I think that's why you sell so much. Obviously you're just a likable person. I think people really coordinate with that well, and they just open up to you, right? Because you're a mom, and they're like, I'm gonna tell her everything. I know I would. I'd be like, yeah, this is my deal. But at the same time, you do really truly care. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I remember Sean, he was really big on, in the beginning is if you don't care about these people, then just don't sell insurance. Because
Yeah.
if it is about the money, you have to just take yourself out of it. And that's one thing that helps me is I'm truly there to serve those clients. I'm there putting them like they're my family, almost like I treat them like my family. And they can tell when you really care. And I think with you, they're just like, this lady is just honestly trying to genuinely help me.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, and that's, it's so important. Just like, you know, we have to have our own why,
Mm-hmm.
in order to do what we do. And so you've got to find their why. and it's huge. And just keep it simple. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I can say is, let somebody coach you. One of the things that I always do, and now is I'm I'm starting the Americo application before anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that Americo application as I'm talking to them once I've gotten the basic information, because I'm running them through Americo.
Yeah.
And, it's very important, I think, for new agents not to show numbers too early,
Mm.
because once you show the numbers, you're done, and so, just filling out that, getting that pre-approval, because the worst thing is, to talk up Americo and Eagle Premier, and then you run them through, and they can't get covered, and then you got to kind of backpedal. So
Mm-hmm.
I always start by putting everybody through Americo,
Yeah.
which that's probably what your manager is going to tell you, if there's any possible chance they could get it, putting them through Americo. And as I'm filling out the information in the application, that's when I'm building the rapport. That's when I'm, asking, well, how did y'all meet? How long have you been married? Or if they're military, I'll say things like, what was your favorite place you were stationed? Well, I was born in Germany. My dad was military. So that's where I'm building that rapport, is as I'm filling that information out. And once I find out, that they've been pre-approved with Americo, I do start talking about, it looks like, America is going to be the best option for you, which is good for many reasons. One is, they do day one coverage. Two, the accidental, the terminal illness rider. I'll explain that. Three, they do non-smoking rates. So I always build the value before I show them anything. I want them to get, or whatever carrier it is, I find something with those particular carriers that I can talk and build that value before I show them the numbers. I want them to know ahead of time, oh, wow, day one coverage, that's great, or non-smoking rates. And so then it's pretty simple. I make it really simple. There's not a big fancy presentation. I put down 3 different options. I turn it around to them and I say, now which one of these makes the most sense for you and Mary? And then I don't say anything. And that was really hard at first, really hard. You've got to get uncomfortable. There was one time I can remember sitting there for what seemed like an hour, but I didn't say anything. I started doing emails or looking at my phone or whatever it was. And which one of those makes the most sense? And then you turn that paper around and you don't say anything until they answer you. Because you've already overcome all the objections, because you've told them what you're going to do. You've told them what the process is and that we're submitting an application. And, if at this point they say, well, probably the middle option, but I need to think about it. And so, now it's like second nature to me. I say, yeah, great. I want to think about it too. So what we need to do is we're going to finish filling out this application and submit it to the carrier, because the carrier needs time to think about it too. So we don't know if you can even get approved for coverage. So we're going to submit the application to make sure that the carrier will approve coverage. And then if there's any changes that you need to make to it, you've got 30 days to do so. And, and I just go ahead and continue filling out the application. You've got to assume the sale because you've already told them what's going to happen.
It's crazy when you talk about that because, we were talking about it in the office the other day is it's really no different than you going into a restaurant, and walking in and being like, hey, table for 2 or 5 or, however many you're with. If someone walked into a restaurant and they're like, hey, how many? And they're just like, oh, I'm just here looking. You'd be like, what? Like, okay. You know, people don't just walk into a restaurant and be like, "Yeah, I think I'm just gonna think about it. I think I'm gonna think about eating here." They'd be like, "Dude, get out of my restaurant." You know, it's just no. People go into a restaurant because they're hungry and they want to eat. Now, they may not have the best experience on it, and that's why we do what we do. Is we want them to have a good experience by the time we leave their house, and we want them to be protected and understand everything.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. Just assume it. They filled out a card. They want life insurance, and it's like, and I want to ask you this, but uh, if you leave the sale or the appointment without a sale, right, and you didn't get the client protected, you have to understand that it's your fault. It's not the
Yeah.
client's fault. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure, you know, there could be some certain situations. Some scenarios are going to be different than the others, and some are going to be a little tougher. I get it, but every appointment you don't close is your fault. You know, either they didn't like you, they didn't trust you, you went too fast, you missed their budget, you didn't build enough importance, you didn't build enough why, whatever. But it's your fault. It's not because they didn't have any money. It's not because they needed to think about it or they didn't understand. You know, it all relatively comes back to you. And I think that's huge because when agents are like, well, they just didn't have any money. I'm like, no, you just didn't build enough value for them to feel like their money was worth the premium. You know,
Well, they
that's what,
filled out the form and they knew it was going to cost money.
correct. Yeah. And
So,
like,
finding what works for them. And like I tell people, like start small if you have to,
mm-hmm,
like if you're going back and forth, maybe start with something that's comfortable for you and Mary, because this is, something that you're going to, be paying.
correct.
So you could always increase it at a later date if you feel like it. So, I don't want them to feel, and I think that goes a long way, because when they're kind of torn and they're, yeah, well, I want to drive a Mercedes, but I drive a Nissan. I mean, there's a reason for that.
Right.
You can't, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. So let's get you something in place versus nothing. And I didn't say this earlier, but another thing I always do in every appointment is tell some sort of story,
Mm,
about, a client that I had, and I try to find something. I'll do that also while I'm filling out, the application, just because it makes them think. And I think telling a story, even if it's not your own story, even if it's, uh, somebody else's that's been out in the field and has talked to people, I always see people like when I'm telling that they'll say, yeah, you know, and it makes it real.
it
It,
does. Yeah. No, it definitely does. And I didn't really understand how important stories were until I had my first death claim.
yeah,
And it was a 24-year-old male. He was killed in a car accident, and you know they paid the claim, within a couple days, and it showed me that, and it was a guy that was pushing me back. He was like, "No, I don't need it. I got insurance to my job." And when I saw that happen, and now that I can tell that in the home, and if you don't have those stories, steal other agents, steal other top producers. It's okay. You know what I mean? Telling a story is telling a story. Stories are huge because, like you said, people can relate. It just makes sense. Everyone doesn't think the same. But
yeah,
if you tell a story, they kind of portray that story in their own head. And they kind of, and if it closes the deal and it closes the deal, they get covered. So, um, cool. Well, as we come up on time here, which this has been really good. I know someone's gonna watch this and get a lot out of it. I know I'm gonna go back and watch it, but um, what is one thing that you are trying to improve on right now, whether it be inside the home, hiring, just your schedule, just anything? What's something that you're improving on right now that you could give, a new agent advice on, something that you're trying to get better at?
Um, well, for me, my goal this year is really getting better, on the hiring aspect of it. Our team has grown, quite a bit over the past few months, but there's, and not just for me. I just have seen the opportunity that I've been given with Family First Life, and I want to be able to share that with others. I think being able to share your story and helping, you're not only helping the our clients' families, but helping agents' families in your own family.
Mhm.
And so that's really a big goal of mine, is to share more, to which in turn, hiring more. So we're really zoned in on that this year in 2021.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like it, So we got to
Right.
share it. We got to help people. There's a lot of lives out there that we got to change, including clients, agents,
Yeah.
everything. We're all here to win. So, Michelle, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you're busy. I know you guys are, like you just said, growing a team, and you're dialing today, booking appointments, and you stop to get on this just to give back and try to help agents. You get no monetary, value for this. Other
Well,
than
thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And, if I can be of help to anybody, I will in the future.
absolutely awesome. Well, thank you guys for getting on and watching. Hopefully this will help somebody, and we'll definitely be putting some more out for you guys soon. Talk to you guys later.